This is Bryant Gumbel. For over 30 years, AHRC New York City has been a valuable resource to New York's business community. AHRC provides businesses with highly skilled and trained workers, creating a unique and meaningful staffing solution. The talent pool consists of qualified individuals who happen to have developmental disabilities, but who also possess unique abilities and marketable skills that make them an asset in the workplace. AHRC works closely with employers to assess their staffing needs. They then select members of their talent pool that are already pre-screened through the various employment training programs offered. AHRC workers are task-oriented and excel at repetitive and complex tasks.
This is so insulting. Did you hear what this is saying? That disabled people excel at repetitive tasks. This is, we really don't need government involved in this degrading situation, because the nonprofits and the government, what they do is they take all the money and they pay the poor person almost nothing. These people are paid literally, in some situations, every 2 weeks they get $95 or $97 for just staying alive. This is crazy. While they pay themselves $400,000, $1 million, contracts of $1.2 million, kickbacks of $500,000, nepotism everywhere. This is an insult to people's intelligence. This is an insult to the taxpayer. It's an insult to the community. What we really need is transparency, right? We have 990 forms for these nonprofits. They don't list all the employees. They don't list all the salaries. And their PDF files, which are a disaster. Thank goodness for certain sites that try to organize them. But what we need is a single database that has all the nonprofits, all the transactions, all the contracts, all the day by day. And it has to be real time too, because if you look at something that's 2 years ago, nobody wants to go back to that, right? It has to be, and let's go to the Ontario law, which is all conversations of public officers, public officials, all of them have to be recorded. We need a body cam looking forward and a body cam looking back, and maybe behind too, in the sides. And every single transaction, every single conversation, every single has to be recorded and available via API, so that, because that's a lot of information, we need to organize it, and I'm sure there's many open source and community members that want to organize that information, and that will happen for free. We don't even have to pay for that, right? But what we need, and we should do it cost effectively, not vendor it out to Virginia to do this, right? It literally, Google can do it for almost nothing. I think this is a public service, having all that information, filter it out. I realize there's a cost involved in that, but the other option is opaqueness and as clear as concrete. And look at the New York City budget. It is as clear as concrete. I would say as transparent as concrete, right? How concrete can you make transparent concrete? That would be cool, but there is no such thing, right? So we need petty bureaucrats, gotta go, and we need a simple system. And on top of that, we, the legal residents of New York City, are the stockholders of New York City. We're not customers. The government is not the employer and the entrepreneur or the owner. The people are the owner, right? The government is a servant, right? So we are the stockholders, and every transaction, say Uber or anything that takes advantage of New York City, should pay a micro dividend real time to all the legal residents of New York City. That would make sense. And then instead of, because they already pay a tax, right? But they're paying it to the government, and then the government turns around and does corrupt contracts, nepotism. You can see that the government workers, like our friend Eric Adams, says that breaking the law, breaking the whatever they call themselves, the code of conduct, or I think it's what do they call it? That conflict of interest, right? Where it says that more than $50 gift has to be disclosed or can't be given. I think it's even worse, can't be given, right? It's illegal, and nepotism is illegal to the contracts, right? But how is it that they can hire all their friends in nepotism? I guess nepotism is not illegal at the government level. It is illegal at the housing level in the contract, I've learned, right? But they still do it. They still violate, and there's no fines and there's no follow-up, and they just announce an indictment and you never hear it again, right? It takes probably 10 years later. By then they're dead, right? Look at Shelley Silver, right? He lasted 20, 30 years, right? Or 40, whatever it was, right? And it took only just about when they're going to die, then they're indicted. And then it goes on and on for 10 years, and then they die. And so, oh, sorry, they die. And there's no punishment either, $200 fine. I'm reading about the Congress, the U.S. Congress. There's no fines. There's no appropriate fines for insider trading. It just so happens that Pelosi is the best stock trader in the world. In fact, there's people that just follow her trades, according to, I guess, her husband. Or I thought her husband was disabled, I thought, or at home. I mean, I didn't know he was a great stock trader. Anyway, the whole thing is a disaster. And this nonprofit in bed with the government, they can't exist without the government, and they do the government work, and then the government does the nonprofit work, and then the contracts just go back and forth. And even worse is things like Microsoft. Microsoft is milking New York City for everything. They're not even a nonprofit. They're a for-profit. Adobe, Microsoft, Cisco, what's the other one? I can't even remember. Oracle. Some of the worst websites in the world, and they're a result of Microsoft and government. And why do you think that these government workers hire so many contractors? Why do we have 300,000 employees of the city and they can't do anything? They just hire contractors. So we've hired all these people that don't actually do anything, and they just hire contractors. It's pretty obvious. If anything goes wrong, these people are protecting their pension, protecting their their Cadillac healthcare, their Cadillac this, Cadillac that, and they can't be blamed for anything. If you don't do anything, you can't be blamed for anything, right? So you say, oh, it's the vendor's fault. Oh, change the vendor. And I stay because, yeah, but you picked the vendor, didn't you? Or how is the vendor picked? Well, of course, that's not transparent. In the budget, it's not transparent. The Office of Managing Budget is not transparent. And the Checkbook NYC is a piece of junk. And Socrata, we pay millions of dollars to videotape something that you could do with a cell phone. They pay millions of dollars to Virginia and Electronics. And this is what we got here in New York City. Anyone out there in the real world, please comment. Please join Taxpayers of New York or something. Create your own group. Post what your group is, because this all has to crash and burn. And someone has to post what is the root cause of all this. It goes back to Tammany Hall. There was a person named George Washington something. I forget his last name. Thunker or whatever. And he was very happy about the corruption. He even wrote a book about corruption, and he said that there's good corruption and bad corruption, and he basically said as long as he's just using insider information, it's okay. I mean, that's good corruption. I don't think he used the word corruption, but he used some graft. I think it was graft back then. Plunkett is his name. Look up Plunkett, Tammany Hall. George Washington Plunkett talks about good graft versus bad graft. Peace out.